Great. Okay, great. So I'd like to start by introducing Eleanor Peck from the Hudson Valley Regional Council, who works with communities all in our region in setting up and actually doing the tasks for the Climate Smart Community Task Force. So Eleanor's going to start by giving us a quick overview of exactly what Climate Smart is, what the task force do, and then I have a separate quick presentation about the town of Rochester and what that could mean for members of that task force working in the town of Rochester to go through the Climate Smart Community Program. Okay, so
thank you. Hello. As Erin said, my name is Eleanor Peck. I'm a sustainability manager at the Hudson Valley Regional Council.
Oh, there it goes.
So the Hudson Valley Regional Council, for those of you who are not familiar, we are the regional planning board essentially for the 7-county Mid-Hudson region. So down in Westchester up to Ulster and then over to Sullivan and Dutchess. We are essentially, it's called our regional council, and there's 9 regional councils in New York State, and there's 650 or more than that nationwide. So we're essentially a membership organization of the 7 counties. So the 7 county members, they fund us, and we also get state grants and federal grants to help do technical assistance, impartial, transparent technical assistance to local governments. And we work in all of these areas listed here, so you can feel free to reach out to us in any one of these areas. So I'm here to talk about the Climate Smart Communities program, and this is a state program. It's a sort of a collaboration between 7 state agencies, but it's mainly run by the Department of Environmental Conservation. There are 399 registered Climate Smart communities. The town of Rochester is one of those registered communities, and there are 118 that are certified. That means they took a bunch of actions, they documented those actions, and they submitted a certification application to DEC, and then they were accepted. So that's essentially what the Climate Smart Task Force would be doing. It would be gathering all of that documentation, completing actions in the Climate Smart program, and actually running through that. So this program shows, or this slide shows exactly what the Climate Smart program is meant to do. So essentially, it's provide assistance and clear pathways for local government leaders to reduce greenhouse gas pollution, so mitigate climate change and build resiliency in the face of climate change, or adapt to climate change. Next slide. So as I listed, there's a bunch of actions in the program. There's over, I think, 115 different actions that municipalities can take, and each one of those has a certain number of points associated with it, and you have to get a certain number of points to be certified. But all of those 100+ actions that I mentioned are nested under these 12 pledge elements. So there's different things that you can do, like decrease energy usage or use climate smart materials management. Engage in an evolving process of climate action. So they're all listed under here. Next slide. There's 2 mandatory actions, but it's really kind of 3. So the first step, which the town has already done, is to register as a climate smart community by passing a municipal resolution saying that you are going to take part in this program. You're going to be you believe in these pledge elements. You're going to be doing them. And then the 2 mandatory actions are establishing a Climate Smart Task Force, which is essentially what what we're here to talk about today, and then appointing a Climate Smart Coordinator. So that's someone who can sort of manage the entire process of being part of the Climate Smart program. Next slide. Then there are a bunch of priority actions. So essentially, to become a certified Climate Smart community, you need to do those 2 mandatory actions, and then you need to do a certain number of priority actions. To be bronze certified, you need to do 3 priority actions. To be silver, I believe you need 6 priority actions. So these are just some of the priority actions that you can do. A lot of these are sort of broader planning documents that you can do, or sort of not just like convert your streetlights to LED, like some sort of basic action that the municipal government can take, but sort of a broader community-led process. Those are generally the priority actions. Next slide. So this is how you can find the rest of those actions that I mentioned. Going to the Climate Smart website, which is just climatesmart.newyork.ny.gov. You can see, it's a little hard to see, but it'll be easier on the recording. There's a thing that says actions and certifications, and you click explore actions. And what comes up when you click Explore Actions is this next. It's this certification actions list, and there's all the 12 pledge elements. You open them up, and you can see all the different actions that are available. And if you click into any one of the actions, there's this pop-up box that comes up. And this is the one for a government operations greenhouse gas inventory. And there's a couple, 2 to 6 page document in there. You can get PDFs, you can get a nice printed version of exactly how you can implement the action, the time period, the costs it might to implement that one, how to obtain points for the action, and what you actually need to submit to the Climate Smart program to get credit. So this is the government operations greenhouse gas inventory, and it says what to submit. Submit a copy of an inventory report published to the public within 5 years prior to the date of your Climate Smart application. And then it goes into even more details beyond that. So essentially, they've laid out the process for you of what you need to do for each one of these actions. Next slide. So it's a little overwhelming, this program, I gotta say. And a lot of folks get a little, confused or frustrated by the process, especially if I think it's really good for people who like, compiling documents and, gathering points. It's like a gamification, essentially, of climate change. So some people are really into it and some people are less so, and that's a-okay. But I think a good Climate Smart task force is made up of both sides of those people, right? People who are, interested in implementing actions, and people who are able to really organize and able to document things and collaborate like that. So this is, there are also a lot of resources to help you, like me. I'm here to help you. So this is some of the support that I can provide the town of Rochester. So registration or restart support I can give, and this is what I'm doing right now. This is presentation to municipal boards. We have a checklist spreadsheet that we can give you to sort of line out exactly what you've done. We can all work together to figure out what you've done and what the next steps might be. And then certification support. So once your task force is up and running, you guys are having regular meetings, you're working on this. If you have one-off questions that come up after a meeting, we don't really know how we could get credit for that action, but we think we could do it. You can always email me or call me and ask me, and we can talk through it, and I can try to either get answers from DEC, or I might have experience because I've worked with so many different organizations in the past doing this process. And then when you are all ready, you've completed everything, you're like, okay, we're ready to submit, then I can do a final review before you submit it to DEC, before you're actually hit the button to click submit. And they review it. I'm happy to review and check things off, or can you go find the minutes from that meeting, and we'll work through it together essentially. Next slide. Then, so that's sort of our broad support. But if we can get really, deep in the weeds and help you with completing specific actions as well, I have other team members. My colleague Melanie works on a grant that we have from DEC that is specifically for helping municipalities in the Mid-Hudson region complete greenhouse gas inventories and climate action plans. So if this is of interest to you, either doing a government operations greenhouse gas inventory or a climate action plan, or community climate action plan, we can help you do that. So she can essentially walk you through the whole process. We have cohorts of municipalities doing it. We've got 25 municipalities right now that are doing a community inventory together. And she's helping them with that. We also get another grant from DEC called the 604B grant that can help with water-related actions. So this is my colleague Lauren. She can help you with these specific actions related to green infrastructure and MS4 permitting. If you want to do a watershed plan for water quality, or if you want to do a drinking water source protection plan, my colleague Lauren is available to help you do any of those, and I can with her. What is MS4? MS4, I'm not actually sure if you all would be. It's essentially all the communities that this is where it's like municipal stormwater. So it's like communities near the Hudson are all MS4 communities, right? Because their stormwater goes straight into the Hudson. But I think a lot of communities that are on smaller rivers or smaller creeks are also part of the MS4 program. And there's all these very specific reporting requirements that they have to do for the EPA that they would be responsible for. So we can help them meet those requirements. This is another state program that relates to the Climate Smart Communities program called the Clean Energy Communities program. And any action that you take in the Clean Energy Communities program directly aligns with Climate Smart. And these are very specifically related to energy, and they're mostly municipal energy projects. So if it's a municipal government, if the town of Rochester government was to convert your streetlights to LED, buy an electric vehicle, put in an electric vehicle charger, make the community center run on clean energy. that type of thing, then you could get credit in the Clean Energy Communities program for that and apply it to the Climate Smart program. And there are these. These are all the actions right here that you can take. They are mostly related to the local government, but not entirely. Some of them are community campaigns, which is wonderful, and they're able to build the community together to take clean energy actions for residents. Slide. As you can see, there are a lot more participating municipalities here. So that Climate Smart map I showed had 399 participating municipalities. This one has over 800, and I think it might even be over 850. Oh no, it is 883. So there are a lot of participating communities in this program, and the reason why is on the next slide, which is that there is really easy grants available to get in this program. So small governments can get $5,000 grants for completing any 4 actions. If you do community campaigns, you can get up to $97,000 in grant funding from NYSERDA, the New York State Energy Research and Development Authority, for doing these actions. So it's definitely worth it, I think, to start with the Clean Energy Communities program, complete a few of those actions, get some grant funding, and that can help propel your Climate Smart Task Force forward if you're interested. And that is that. I'm here to help with that program as well. That's my main role, is helping with the Clean Energy Communities program, but I also assist with Climate Smart. So I'm happy to answer any questions that well.
I believe the town already has a bronze level. So at what point in the scheme of this whole thing are they?
My understanding.
I could answer that. We don't have any levels. We're just I'm going to share that information. We could get bronze status pretty easily because we're 80% of the way there. We had an assessment done in 2021, but we haven't established a task force yet to submit all those actions to achieve it.
And with that being said, what was the role of this? So
she was named the coordinator, but then has since stepped out of that role, so that coordinator role is open again.
When we're talking about clean energy, I think about the word clean. And one of my greatest concerns is waste. Waste in the way of our town when it comes to buying materials that are properly recycled. Plastic is not being recycled. Cans are. Also garbage that we create. I want to know, I don't see this at all involved in this, and I probably couldn't see it. I was looking for it, small print.
Yeah, sorry.
But my other question is, it would be great if we could encourage that more in our town. And is there a way that we can bring in municipal composting, like they have in Kingston, like we've had in a lot of the local schools?
Yeah.
So
yeah. Absolutely. So there is the pledge element. It's not specifically called waste, but the pledge element, Climate Smart Materials Management, is all about recycling, composting, waste management. There's like recycling in public buildings or public spaces, all sorts of things along those lines. Reuse centers, you can get credit for any one of those things that I just mentioned, and there's different varying levels of points that you can get for doing any of those things. So waste is a pretty big part of the Climate Smart program.
So like what we have done right now, we have sharing of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's a fabulous thing.
Yep, and that could get you all credit probably.
Thank you.
I think I saw him first. Go.
So in other words, you get certified as a climate.
Climate Smart. You become a certified Climate Smart.
Is there anything what the town gets for that from the state? Or?
Yeah. Great question. So you will be recognized as a Climate Smart certified community. They usually come, either the governor or the DEC commissioner will do a press release and a press event when towns are Climate Smart certified. You get these beautiful plaques to put up in your town, and there are tangible benefits as well beyond just the recognition of Rochester being Climate Smart certified. You get more points on any Climate Smart grants that you would apply for. That's a grant that's through the CFA, the big funding, the state funding application that opens up every summer. You get more points on your any Climate Smart applications you would put in, any, the DEC, or not the DEC, the Department of State's comprehensive planning grants that they put out, you would get more points on those. And there's a couple other, I can send over the list of grants, you get more points on your application. Essentially, you're more likely to be funded for those grants that you would submit for the state because you're Climate Smart certified. Yes.
Well, the town of Rochester has an extensive solar energy project going. And I think an important aspect is hydroelectric, which has been widely overlooked. Because I remember when the High Falls hydroelectric plant was working, and it provided quite a bit of clean, inexpensive energy for all of Ulster counties. And also with Central Hudson, which is owned by Fortis, which is a Canadian company. I know in my youth, Dwight D. Eisenhower said, and I believe it's true, that we could keep our energy resources owned by American firms. And I think this Canadian firm is not interested in the well-being of the community that I live in anyway. And so I also suggest that the energy coming from Canada, which is a friendly country, but actually is not very friendly economically with other aspects of the economy, is selling cheap hydroelectric energy to New York City, where we have plenty of that in New York State itself.
Yeah.
So I think that should be looked at.
Yeah, no, I fully agree with that. And I think there's definitely a lot of hydroelectric resources in the Hudson Valley, right? I don't know about the town of Rochester, but I know nearby towns like Marbletown and Rosendale are essentially like customers of a hydroelectric plant over near there. I don't know about the High Falls hydroelectric plant. But there's also I've seen growing. I was at a conference a few months ago where this company essentially their whole thing is they're rebuilding hydro plants that have been closed down, like old small hydro plants in New York and I think nationwide, sort of rebuilding them and restarting them as new rejuvenated clean energy resources. I think we're going to need solar, we're going to need hydro, right? All of these different things. I'm not going to say anything pro or anti Central Hudson. I think everyone feels the same way about Central Hudson at this point, right? But yeah, I'm in full agreement with the need for hydro and the importance of hydro. Yes.
Speaking of waste and local energy production, I recall a few years ago the comments to the new changes. SECRA included some definitions about municipal scale biogas digesters. Is that something that is considered as a climate smart approach?
Biogas digesters.
And those are big waste.
Yeah, so that's a good question. There's not a specific action related to biogas digesters in that pledge element, the climate smart materials management. There is one related to food scrap collection, right? So if you were collecting food scraps from the community, even if whether it was going to a local compost pile or it was going to a biogas digester, you could get credit for that. That being said, there's also and one of the pledge elements is the innovative action. So I haven't seen too many, I've only seen a few municipalities doing biogas digesters. So I do think you all could get credit potentially for implementing a biogas digester under the innovative action category.
Great, thank you, Eleanor. Great. Very helpful. I'm going to go through a more specific town of Rochester short slide deck, and then if we have any more questions or discussion that we'd like to have, I'm sure Eleanor would also again join in on that. For those of you that came in late, if you need a chair, we have more chairs on the side, or there's some more chairs in the audience. And then also we do have a sign-in sheet. So before you leave today, if you'd like follow-up information, make sure you put your contact information on that. My name is Erin Anow, and I'm on the town board. I'm a town council member. And I have been really interested in seeing what a climate smart task force and being a climate smart community could be in the town of Rochester. One of the reasons why I was initially attracted to it is because you are guided through actions and given standards and goalposts, which I think for some people, as Eleanor brought up, as a participating member in a community, it's really helpful to have like that sort of like reward at the end where you can say that you were able to complete something. The other, on the flip side of that, the other thing that I like about it is it's flexible. It's not like in order to be a climate smart community, you have to do this thing or you have to do this thing. It's broad and big enough that a community can take actions that really work and fit within the community itself and what the residents are looking for and what the residents need. So I have a short presentation that I did not create the whole thing. This is was taken from an assessment that was done for our town specifically in 2021. So what I'm going to do quickly is walk through the town's climate smart history, and then that relates to an assessment that was done by BARD students that will show us climate related risks and what climate smart community certification looks like. And then we're going to look at some tangible goals and actions that were offered to us through this study that we've done by BARD students in 2021. They used a climate smart resiliency planning tool, which I have and can share with anyone interested, but it also could be useful to new members of the task force to take a look at and get a good picture of where the town is at in terms of this program. And then there's also this, the BARD students under the direction of Europa McGovern, which I'm forgetting which role specifically she's in now. But there's a bunch of recommendations for where we can start. So in December of 2020, the town of Rochester signed the pledge to become a climate smart community. And this was the previous board, not the current board. So this was when Bee was also on the board. And then it took us a while to take any next steps. So we took the pledge, then we received a couple of grants. One, we received this opportunity to have the BARD Center for Environmental Policy students do a gap analysis of our town as it is and our codes and policies. We also received a grant that provided educational and technical support to our town through a coordinator. So we also have had a lot of resources through that program. In 2021, the town board passed a resolution forming the Climate Smart Task Force. And I'm happy that's posted on our town website, and I'm happy to share that with anyone after. So as Eleanor shared all of this with us, but the Climate Smart program is a statewide program that the town of Rochester is participating in to adapt to future climate scenarios and protect the town's heritage. So Eleanor reviewed the 12 key elements, but I have those here now. And that's how the actions are organized. It's this points program. So there are mandatory things you have to do, which basically is establishing the task force and appointing a coordinator. And then there are priority areas. And like I said, it's very flexible where the town would actually take actions. The analysis that the BARD students did looks at mitigating the future challenges that we could be susceptible to in the town of Rochester by climate change. So what the students did was a gap analysis around the completion of climate smart resiliency planning tool, and it looks like this. So basically, they did a community plan checklist, and then it's just like a sort of chart of notes, when things were done, if it has been done, and if there's anything of note about those, the community plans. And then using that tool, the BARD students created a gap analysis report for the town of Rochester. And this is just a snapshot of that. And I also have it up on my computer so I can share it, or anyone can look at it today. When we're doing the breakout, we can just sort of explore what that looks like. So anyone wanting to maybe apply for that committee could get a real understanding of the types of things that we would be you would be focusing on, or could be focusing on as that task force. So these are the documents that the town currently has adopted that were used in that analysis. So we have a 2006 comprehensive plan. We have our zoning ordinances, our subdivision. We have an open space plan, the natural heritage plan, which is a town document, but it is not part of our comprehensive plan. We do have a flood prevention ordinance. We also have an emergency response recovery plan. We did a building condition survey in 2020. We have the historic preservation plan, which is this is how some of these committees work together, because that is what the one of the documents that the Historic Preservation Commission uses and updates. The historic farm study, and a groundwater protection plan from 2006. And then the BARD students also identified stakeholders for the town of Rochester. And these are just in the first section, well, there's the school district, the agricultural community stakeholders, and then our conservation and environmental resources. These are organizations, agencies, and this type of analysis is important for like the type of work that both the town board does and the task force would do. And also, as I mentioned before, this is where there's a convergence of overlap with the different boards and commissions, because a lot of this also relates to work that some of our other boards do. And then there's even more, these are so some of our, like the second page list of the stakeholders. And of course, I feel like last but not least would be the community. I think that's like a really important one, like all the residents in the town. Okay, so the key strengths of our town. This again is what was identified by the BARD students. So we have a town comprehensive plan, and they sort of outlined what they feel like the strengths are behind that plan. The open space plan and the natural heritage plan, which are town documents that were adopted and they are town documents that were accepted in 2018. So our open space plan provides locations and really criteria for what different sensitive and important community assets are. And then the natural heritage plan provides a set of recommended actions. And again, that was a little more current, that was done a little later than the town comprehensive plan. The groundwater protection plan, if you guys haven't ever seen that, it's lots of maps, it's pretty fascinating. And then the flood damage prevention ordinance. So I'm just going through these quickly, but we can talk about any of them later. And then our zoning ordinance. has some important components to it, and also that's part of the idea behind some of the proposed zoning changes that the board is looking at and considering right now. So protecting quantity and quality of water, preserving productive farmland, creating public access to trails, creating guidelines for new development and the landscape around that development to preserve the natural elements. And then we have an emergency management plan that looks like this. We have an emergency management director too that's also a town resident. And this is showing some of the key gaps that we have in the town. So, although we have an emergency plan, there's currently no implementation of a multi-hazard mitigation plan. So that's just like one area that we could fill out.
What would be an example of multi-hazard?
So it's like, for example,
What happened on Van Tine? And Van Tine, the 3 Van Tine with the illegal dumping that's still there.
yeah,
That would be an example of what that plan could help with.
yes,
Because
it could,
It's still there.
yeah. And then I think also when oftentimes if there's one disaster, that could create multiple. So there could be fires and flooding. They're just like having it more comprehensive. And we haven't done it, so I'm not as familiar with it. But and I think also it could also connect with other municipalities as well. So in terms of the thinking there. So although we have a comprehensive plan and it was done with a lot of community engagement, it is from 2006. So we are, you know, just a few years away from that being 20 years old plan. So they're recommending, they're saying it could be updated from that time period. And then the other gap they're saying is there's an opportunity to for the town to implement a flood management plan and a stormwater management plan. And then they can be integrated with each other. So these are this is the BARD recommendations to think about sort of integrating some of the plans that we have a little bit better together officially, and utilize some of the specific tools recommended in the rubric that they used. The other gap is, and this is a fresh gap, formal public outreach needed to inform residents of climate-related information and activities. And they're just identifying that this is a gap in our town to involve people more, which I would agree with. Then also, it says that we provide no specifically defined climate change related risks, even though common vulnerabilities are identified. So I think that's in our town planning documents. So our comprehensive plan, for example, doesn't mention this type of thing, and that's a common, I've seen that as a common update for town comprehensive plans. Okay. So basically, they then made a bunch of recommendations for the town and our task force. And again, this was just an in-depth analysis that was done by BARD students. This is not like you have to do this, but I felt, especially with the risk assessment and thinking about the safety and welfare of our community, I felt like this was a really good thing for us to think about for this task force. So updating the comprehensive plan, and they're showing how updating the comprehensive plan could work with the climate smart point system. So it'd be sort of like a 2-for-1, doing something that we need to do, and also we would be on track to get points through this. And then implementing a greenhouse gas inventory. This is one of the first actions a lot of communities do. And we have not done this. And there is funding available to actually complete this. Like, there's a lot of assistance to, for the town to be able to do this without having to hire like, consultants. Recommendation 3 would be implementing a multi-hazard mitigation plan, which we sort of reviewed, but this also shows the guidance that the Climate Smart program kind of takes you through in terms of the program and the points and how we would start to think about structuring that plan and key elements that we want in that plan. And then implementing a updated flood and stormwater management plan. And I think, I'm not sure how accurate this is, but I think for the stormwater management, we just use the county's plan, which is like not specific to our town. And then they're also recommending that we do more, the community events where we are bringing members of the community in and gathering information from the community about what we want from what the Imagine Rochester event that was done through comprehensive plan, but more of those and more frequently. And I'd say that at least in my experience, that's something that's highly encouraged as something that the Climate Smart Task Force can do, is lots of community engagement and information gathering and information sharing, because the last thing we would want is to like, you know, impose some sort of way that we want the town to be climate smart on the residents, because it can, you know, this is shaping our code and our laws and the way that we think about our energy funding, energy sources, things like that. And you do get points for community engagement. And let's see, I think, and then they went through, and again, this would be like a good thing for like the first quarter of a Climate Smart Task Force, is to look at the quick and easy points. Eleanor shared with us the clean energy community, and how, and we are clean energy because I think we've done one of the tasks that I don't even know that we were aware of, but we did it. And so there's some points for that too.
Oh, it's the solar farm, right?
Yeah, I can't, there was one.
I think it was that your code official took the energy code.
Oh, yes, yeah, our code official took the, yeah.
But potentially the solar farm could get you over.
Yeah, yeah. And so this is just some easy starting points that the task force could help implement for the town. Just more of those. And actually we do, a lot of it we've kind of already done, so we just need to file. I think we only have one street that isn't LED. And then New York State provides multiple funding opportunities to help communities achieve their goals. And this is again, the other carrot of the program. And I'm not sure how up to date this is, because this was put together in 2021, but there's a list of potential funding that's available to climate smart communities. And again, if it's something that aligns with what the community wants, and the Climate Smart Task Force has done that background work, and then there's a funding opportunity, it's a win-win for the town to take advantage of some of these opportunities. And then this just goes through, and then their assessment was, with what we have in place, we are, as Bea was mentioning, we are well on our way in terms of where we're at in achieving bronze level status. So our task force would have some clear, tangible, reachable goals in, I'd say, the first year of being seated and getting to work. And so that's it. I would like to say, just like as a note, we also have an environmental conservation commission that has open seats. We are thinking about these as two different bodies. There might be membership crossover, But our Environmental Conservation Commission, which we do have Judith here to, during the open house to describe more about what that is focuses more on engagement, education, pollinator gardens, not quite so like task force, and policy oriented. And with that, I just wanted to open it up if there's any more questions about Climate Smart.
You mentioned something about groundwater protection. Can you say more about that?
So I can try to say more about it, and I can also point you to the plan. We have the Aquifer Protection Overlay District, and that there's restrictions on development and uses that can happen in those areas where there's sensitive groundwater. And so it focuses on that, because I think we think of our groundwater and well water as being, it's just like there, but it's not an infinite resource. And it's important that we think about protecting the health of our water, especially in a rural area where we're not on community water, and we're relying on, tapping into our groundwater for our livelihoods in both residential uses and our commercial and agricultural uses. But there is a plan that overlay zone was based off the mapping from that plan. Yes. Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about what the process would look like once the Climate Smart group is formed? Like, I would assume that, maybe with Eleanor's assistance and looking at what the community wants and what's easy for the town to do based on this assessment, there'd be some kind of like triangulation of priorities that help us achieve a certain status and a certain amount of funding as quickly and, supportively as possible. That's just a suggestion or a thought about how I could see it working. But is there anything, and maybe Eleanor, in your experience, when you come to a specific area and you need to get a better understanding of the community and also this types of things that Erin just presented, like what happens in order to prioritize? Because as you said, it's a pretty I've been on the website, like there's so many things to do and it's great and it's flexibility, but like, what do you suggest in like prioritization and like making things happen in a great way? Yeah, I always recommend, in that slide about how I can help, we have this spreadsheet with a list of all the actions and what the points are. And you all essentially had this partially done, right, with the gap analysis that was completed. So I think, a good first step for the first few meetings would be, obviously appointing someone, a coordinator, and looking at the spreadsheet combined with the gap analysis to actually see how many points you have, who has access to the information that you'll need to gather for all of those actions that have already been completed. And then, once you see how many points you have, how many priority, how many mandatory you've actually completed, then you can sort of assign people tasks, right? Like who has a good relationship with the, the building department, so they can go get this, this thing figured out. Who has a good relationship with the town board, so we can find those, that file from, 2018. And then who wants to be leading this big we need to take on this big project, either, updating a comprehensive plan or, creating a greenhouse gas inventory. Who wants to be in charge of that, and then have like a sort of subgroup, right, work on a new project that you need to actually get yourself over the finish line. So that's what the first few meetings I would imagine would look like. I don't know.
Yeah, I was also thinking of it that way, and what are things that are well within the budget and the in line with what the town can do, and then what are things that we really want community input and guidance on. The town comprehensive plan is an obvious one where it should be coming from your community. That's not something the Climate Smart task force would be taking on. They would be an involved, voice in that process, but that would come through lots of community engagement and involvement and different boards and commissions. But there's a big gray area in between converting the lighting in buildings to different light bulbs and some of the other actions. So I think I could envision some, if there could be surveys done or other community engagement actions that are happening in that first year when we're looking at some of the bigger actions. Okay.
I have a question following up on what does success look like when you have looked at communities who've done that successfully?
What's a success look like?
What are the ingredients basically? Or
The ingredients.
what has
I think having a really, a committed group and having a few people and having really defined tasks, right? I think oftentimes it can fall on, one person's shoulders, one person who sort of does everything. But group, if you get a good group of, a few people who can really understand what their role is and what they're up to do, with sort of like someone maybe directing them, right? Like, we're going to be doing this, we're going to be doing, you'll do that, and everyone working together. I think that's when I've seen it work the best. That way you don't get one person who's really burned out after a year. But it can come in many different ways, for sure.
So I have a question about, sometimes wonderful ideas can end up working in a bubble. So I see that our current planning board is really wonderful about outreaching to the various commissions to say, do we have a thought on this that we should consider as we're looking at something? How do you integrate your commission into the forward movement of development in our community?
How do we integrate? Can you say the last part again?
How do you integrate these wonderful ideas and goals into what's actually happening on the ground in our community?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that's a great question to hold. I don't necessarily have the answer. Hosting this event has made me start really putting together, what are the vacancies? What do all the boards do? I have in my mind doing that, I start to see what the overlap is. And, I could envision, there's you have meetings where everybody gets together in a company to review what everybody's doing. I can envision something like that happening in the town. I don't know that it's how frequently that sort of things happen in the past, but I think a big all boards and commissions meeting, yearly or biannually could be a really good thing. I think it just takes the pressure on the board to make that happen. And then I also think a commitment to I think it's great to hear that we have a planning board that's doing that and oh, now that we know that that's happening, maybe that's something that we can sort of ask of each other. And then I would also say there's that bubble. So we have the micro bubbles, so we have the government bubbles, and then we have the community bubbles. And so there's all these different layers of connectivity that I think we can continue to be better at. We have so many connection tools that we could probably just make sure that that's happening in a deliberate way. Valeria.
I've got a couple of questions. First, simple. I'm sorry, I missed the first few minutes, but is the Hudson Valley Regional Council a nonprofit or a government?
That's a great question. We're kind of in the middle. We're technically a New York State nonprofit, but we are not a federal nonprofit, and we are essentially a membership organization of the 7 counties. So we are have our hand in both worlds. The federal government sort of considers us a local government of our own being. But the state considers us a nonprofit.
501c3? No.
No, we're not a 501c3, but we are a New York State nonprofit.
So you have funding from the state then to do this work?
We have funding from the 7 counties. So Ulster County pays us, all the 7 counties pay us, and then a little bit. And then we get grants from the state. So we have grants from DEC, 2 grants from DEC, a grant from NYSERDA, and then we have 2 federal grants, one from the EPA and one from the Department of
So you administer the sub-grants for the localities?
No, we do not generally administer sub-grants to localities. We've done it in a few cases. We receive the grants and then we provide technical assistance. So I can, help you attend some meetings, help you, a colleague of ours will help you do a climate action plan, we'll help you do a greenhouse gas inventory. And then we can also, with the Clean Energy Communities program, that NYSERDA program that gives out the small grants to municipalities, we can help you achieve those actions and get those grants.
Okay, so my second question, that's one question with many follow-ups. So I served on the Conservation Advisory Council of the City of Kingston like over a decade ago when they were just launching their climate smart and jobs plan. And I just kind of found that a lot of it was aspirational at that time. So the question from that experience is how, you're a task force, how do you incentivize the employed members of the local government to achieve these goals? There's we can potentially get a grant, but then do we have to go to the common council? Do we have to go to council and pass a resolution to incentivize them, or can we work more loosely with them and they'll just do it of their goodwill? That's like a practical question. Yeah, that may be more local to the town of Rochester governance question as well.
Yeah. Do you want to take that? I can speak to other municipalities.
Yeah, I think, one of the components of this is that, there does have to be a, elected official or employee that is like involved in the task force.
Yeah.
So there's that. It's not a guarantee that a resolution would pass, but it is a requirement of the program. So I think in this case, like I would pledge to be like involved in the task force and making sure that the town board and the task force are working together. In future years, I don't know what that would look like because that's part of the beauty of our government, the way it works. But in terms of like other municipalities, maybe Eleanor, you could share what that looks like.
I mean, we see it work in a whole host of different ways. So sometimes my main contact is the town clerk or the town treasurer, and they don't really have a lot of committed volunteers. And honestly, that's how it works in most of the rest of the state. The Hudson Valley is really, we have a hotbed of activity, and there's a ton of, volunteers and conservation advisory councils and things of that nature. So oftentimes it really is, it's a municipal employee who's either taken on this initiative or been assigned it by, their boss, the town supervisor. And then sometimes we have, actually, I think in most cases, there is a really committed group of volunteers who wants to take this on with some support from their town board or their city council. And in that case, I have seen it, sometimes it can get sort of tense, right? If the town government, employees aren't really committed to this work, or they're sort of, it's another task, right? They have a whole job to do, and then you're asking them to do additional things on top of that. So I think that's actually another thing that I would add to like what the ingredient for success is, having someone, who's either like your liaison to the town, like, like Erin would be sort of helping things along, move things forward without pressuring or, causing distress between the town government and the volunteers. But sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. You sort of have, to work with politics and personalities.
Okay, so we've got three more questions, and then I will close this portion and we'll move on to talking about all the vacancies. So, in the back.
Just one.
Oh, hold on.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry.
Which one? Me?
Yeah, May.
When we originally got the grant, we were given a subscription to the ICLEI. Do we still have to subscribe to that international not-for-profit to be in this program?
No, I think that was a free.
That's awesome.
Okay. I think that was a free annual subscription. I think we declined
Yes,
it
was.
after the.
Someone else paid for us.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, we are no longer.
That's
Okay. Sierra.
Just on a practical note, what would this task force look like in terms of ideal number of people and like workload and meeting schedule?
We have, I have the resolution on my computer. I think it's 7. And then most of our boards and commissions meet once a month. The task force itself would set its own meeting schedule. I mean, everyone would work together to find a time and a location that worked best. But you could have more frequent meetings or like you could set your schedule based on how the members and the goals are.
No, I think that is.
Oh, okay, great. Okay, so there will be an opportunity to ask more one-on-one questions. I just wanted to shift over to the open house portion before we break out into smaller sort of conversational groups. I just wanted to review what our vacancies are in the town. So thanks everyone. Thank you, Eleanor, for presenting on Climate Smart. And I'm really excited to see everyone here today. So I'll try to get through this quickly. So this is the Town of Rochester Boards and Commissions open house. So for an overview, this is the vacancy. I might put you on the spot. Is
Okay,
the
that's fine.
ambulance, is there one vacancy on that?
Not yet that I'm aware
Oh,
of.
okay.
You may know more than
I don't,
do at this
I
point.
don't, I just.
Not yet.
Okay, I had two different sets of information. I did not say that there was a vacancy on it. Okay, great.
Because
Okay,
to the
so
best
we-
of my knowledge, we're all.
Okay, great. So we have currently one vacancy on the planning board for a member. The planning board is an administrative body in town that reviews applications that are subject to planning board review. So that would be site plan, subdivision, special use permits. The criteria the planning board uses to review applications is set forth in our zoning code and our subdivision code. They meet 1 to 2 times a month for as long as it takes to get through the agenda. Those meetings can be anywhere from 2 to 4 hours long. And there's a lot of homework involved, I'd say, in being a planning board member. You are tasked with official New York State. There's like things that you have to do. And when you're discussing and making decisions and approving or disapproving applications, there are things that you have to be looking at and reviewing. It's great for, you can talk more to Mark and Zach, who are here from the planning board, if you're interested, about like what it takes to be a member. But I'd say, like, if you don't like looking at maps, it might not be the board for you. We have one alternate position on the Zoning Board of Appeals. That is also a board that has official, very like official duties in the town. The Zoning Board of Appeals is a sort of a judicial body. They hear they receive applications from people who are seeking a variance to the code in order to do something. In both cases of the Planning Board and the Zoning Board of Appeals, you get to those boards through the building department. So you would apply for a project, they would tell you, in order to do this, you have to go before the planning board, or in order to do this, you would need a variance. The Zoning Board of Appeals also can hear appeals to code enforcement determinations. So if you receive a determination from the code enforcement officer and you don't think that it's right, you have 30 days to bring that to the Zoning Board of Appeals and have them determine whether or not that stands. And the Zoning Board of Appeals also can serve as a code interpretation body. So they get requests to, and that's typically from like town agencies. They would get a request to clarify if there needs to be a clarification. So our Historic Preservation Commission has several vacancies, but also has that one has a range of membership. And so we have some open seats. The Historic Preservation Commission has been doing lots of amazing things in our town, lots of incredible events, educational talks. days, really great things. And they also are, receive referrals from the planning board to comment on if your parcel is a historic parcel of property they can make comment or recommendations to the planning board. They also, as we talked about, update the inventory that we have at time. Our Environmental Conservation Commission is an environmentally minded board that is also an official town commission. And currently they've been doing campaigns for pollinator. We became a pollinator pathway community through their leadership, and have been working on getting more pollinator gardens installed throughout the town, on town properties. They also can comment on, they get referrals for comment, and do other environmentally minded actions and activities. And one of the, I think, most fun things is the pulling tires out of the Rondout, which happens in the summer. Then we thoroughly reviewed the Climate Smart Task Force. That is a new board and has no appointments. So we have a lot, there's 7 vacancies. Board of Assessment Review has 1 vacancy. And this is, if you want to learn more about this, come talk to me. This is the chance, you have 1 chance a year to appeal your assessment. And that goes to the Board of Assessment Review. They meet once a year to hear and make determinations on those appeals. And so that would be one of the boards that is not meeting once a month. And then we also have 1 vacancy on our ethics board, which is another board that has official town duties, but it's as needed. So that's another board that, you know, that's if you're really into ethics concerns. So if there's an ethics complaint, the ethics board is the body that reviews that. And then just, we do have other boards and commissions that, as far as I'm aware of, don't have any vacancies, but if you're interested in them, it's still really worthwhile to talk to the members, to apply, ask to get waitlisted, see if you can be a volunteer. A lot of our boards do have a need for additional volunteers for events. Joan.
If you're not a member, are the meetings all open to the public?
That's a great question. So all of our official boards and commissions are subject to open meetings laws. So the meetings are supposed to be open to the public, noticed if there's a change. Typically, we set the meeting schedule at the beginning of the year, but if additional meetings are scheduled, those should be noticed. Some of our ad hoc committees are not necessarily subject to open meetings law, but that doesn't mean that the meetings aren't open. So to my knowledge, everything listed here is open to the public. So like we do, as far as I know, we currently do not have any vacancies on the Youth and Senior Recreation Commission. Yes, yeah. And we have a Housing Advisory Committee that doesn't have vacancies. The Agricultural Advisory Committee that also doesn't have vacancies. And then the Ambulance District Budget Advisory, oh, sorry, there's typos on there, committee. But you can still get involved, learn about what these do, because when we need members, we need them. And so if there's something like you're interested in, I got involved by being the alternate on the Zoning Board of Appeals, and then I got seated to the board. And so like, there's always those types of opportunities where you can stay engaged. Yes.
Is there a salary involved in any of these stuff?
Stipends. There's small stipends that are involved with the planning board and the zoning board of appeals. Am I forgetting one? I'm looking at you, Michael.
It's a,
Yeah, I think it's those two, there's stipends. But otherwise, these are all volunteer boards, so unless are there any other general questions that maybe I could answer? Otherwise, I think with that, I'd like to acknowledge and maybe give a round of applause to all of our volunteer boards and our very modestly compensated board members who do this work for us. So thank you. And thank you, Eleanor, for coming out today and educating us. Thank you for coming. I do have a sign-in sheet. So if you would like to receive follow-up information, it's important to sign in on that sign-in sheet and provide either a phone number or legibly provide your email address so that I can follow up with the applications and we'll be setting a deadline for when we want to receive our general applications. Oh, one other housekeeping note, I'm sorry. We are seeking applicants for terms that start in 2024. So the application deadline is TBD, but it's likely to be very early in January. So, so that the board can then review the applications. We typically conduct interviews, and then the town board is the body that makes the appointments to all the boards and commissions that we've been talking about here today. Okay, great. So now we have a couple hours to break out, talk to, we have Judith from the ECC. We have a lot of Historic Preservation Commission members, the Recreation Commission, Planning Board, Zoning Board of Appeals. And if there's not a representative from those boards and you'd like to learn more, you can talk to me. Okay, great. Thanks.
Thank you.